Hi, I'm Robert. I have a subject that nobody wants to talk about. This subject is very confusing to everybody, and I'm here to give you information and knowledge of what's really going on, and there's many movements out there that they're still not being heard, and we have to get together to get this information to understand this, and that's why I'm here. The subject I'm talking about is courts and how they have been prosecuting teenagers for consensual sex with another teenager, like a 15 and a 17-year-old, and sending them to prison. There are numerous across America, and they are struggling to get their justice. I have stories of people suffering on the sex offender registry and how they're being mistreated by everybody, whether it's housing, neighbors, and the confusion of how everybody's grouped into one category. I'm not saying that people shouldn't be on the registry and whatnot, and that they shouldn't have all these laws and rules, but there's things that are wrong that need to be straightened out, and it's for consensual teens. If you're on the registry, you look like a child molester, and these teenagers look like this, and they struggle inside, and many have gone to prison, many have been assaulted in prison, coming out trying to live a life, and they don't have a second opportunity, and they should have never gone to prison to begin with. Why are we putting people in prison? I want to say, first of all, a lot of them, they don't have a driver's license. So when they get out, they can't get a very good job, and when they do have a job, a lot of times they're paying people to come and get them, take them back and forth to work, and then, to take off to go to group, or for probation, go to probation and go to group. You got to pay for probation, you got to pay for these groups, you got to pay the person to take you there from work, plus you're missing work too. We're not letting these people get to develop to be successful. The courts have been charging teens, like 16-year-olds, of having child pornography. So they're taking a picture of themselves and charging them for child pornography of themselves and putting them on the registry. I'm talking about courts who treat teenagers like this and yet let adults who offend with 13-year-olds and are prosecuting teens worse than them. And this is wrong. This is very real. In every state, the legislations are written differently and the laws are different. And there's different categories of how the courts were using the terms of anyone having sexual contact with someone under the age of 16, and that they could be sentenced to prison for 20 years. I know people don't want to talk to their kids about sex, but they need to. Every state's different. You need to learn it now, because your kid could be the one jumping off the roof next door to the school, and it's so serious. There have been many teens who have been prosecuted and sentenced to prison, and one of those being Gennaro Wilson in Georgia. When he was 17, he was on video of a 15-year-old giving him oral sex, and because of the video, even though the 15-year-old's willing and he's willing, that was enough, so he went to jury instead of taking a plea, and the jury had to find him guilty, even though the jury doesn't agree with what's going on, and then he gets sentenced to 10 years because of the evidence of that video. In 2007, he was released for cruel, harsh, and unusual punishment, and his case is the case that started picking up the Romeo and Juliet bill. The bills that help straighten out the legislations where the courts cannot prosecute teens consensually with another teen. When the legislation bills went through Gennaro State in Georgia in 2007, the legislators did not make it retroactive. When Gennaro's case went through the legislation, they didn't want to make it retroactive because they didn't want to open a floodgate. We'll open these floodgates because we don't deserve this. And they should be accountable for what they've done and what they're hiding and doing so secretly through the legislations that nobody even knows about this, and nobody knows that they can even go back to get off of their registry and felonies. And this is so wrong. I want to talk about Brian Banks, the 16-year-old who went to prison because somebody had lied. And he went to prison and served his time, came out, did his parole, and then he was on the registry until the other 16-year-old female says the truth that they never had said. So when he goes to court, his lawyer says, hey, you need to take a plea agreement. The jury's not gonna go for you. They're gonna be all white jury, and that you're a big black football player and you're gonna be found guilty, that there's no chance for him. Take this agreement, He's fighting this, but he doesn't know what to do. And he goes to his lawyer and they tried to make him take a plea agreement, and so the plea agreement is that he would do some time. Also, when he went to take the plea agreement, the judge accepted his guilty plea but did not accept his plea agreement and just sentenced him to prison, 12 years. So yeah, that's happening. I am one of those who were sentenced to prison. I was sentenced to prison after admitting to receiving a blowjob when I was 17 and she was 15. I was anyone, according to the legislation. There are so many things wrong with my case. Starting with, I was the only one prosecuted, and there was an 18-year-old getting a blowjob by a 16-year-old in front of a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old. So yeah, you're gonna see Geralyn's statement, my statement, how she doesn't even say anything. She admits that two other people are in a vehicle, but nothing about getting oral sex, and nothing about that it was her idea to plan it with Tiffany, and how I was the only one prosecuted. Geralyn should be prosecuted. But yeah, you go into Tiffany's statement, and Tiffany was Geralyn's friend, and it even states in there that they were once best friends. I haven't seen Tiffany since when we dropped her off that night. It's just so crazy on who's running and working in the Department of Corrections. They're being taught how to treat people, which is unfairly. And I'll get into why and how with what I've already been through. And you'll see that I went through prison and they said I was a role model inmate. That the SOT, the sex offender therapist in prison, said I shouldn't be there when he went through my file, and told the rest of the people in group I shouldn't be here for what I am in prison for. But there was nothing he could do either. I know, it makes no sense. I went through prison. I was in there trying to be good, and they didn't care about me or anything. Like, I was doing dead time. I can't wait for you guys to get to know me more and know more what happened, and it is just unbelievable. The retroactive bills are just laying there unsigned, and they're still sitting there. I've emailed legislators and senators to reinstate them. They haven't yet. And June's right here around the corner, and that's when they do bills. And then they sign them in March. I shouldn't be waiting anymore. And it's taking forever. And I don't think if I wasn't doing this, I won't think I'd ever get my justice. In my state, the legislation bills went through, even though they didn't make it retroactive for me either, that people cannot appeal their case because they're not in custody, and there's all these holes of trying to get our justice. Other states have adapted that if you're on the sex offender registry, you are in custody, so therefore, once that bill's in Wisconsin, then I can appeal my case, because and that's the way I want to go. I don't want to wait for the registry and for the new bills for me to get off the registry in the felony. I don't want it to change from a felony, second-degree sexual assault, because what they'll do is they'll change it from a felony, second-degree sexual assault to a child to a misdemeanor, underage sexual activity. Well, I don't want that on my name either, because I don't deserve it. Even if we're underage, I don't want that. And I don't deserve the theft either. I only took the theft because I had to take the plea because of my statement that I was forced to do. And that same judge and DA prosecute real adults with real child crimes to less than what I did and went to prison for. Come on, I shouldn't even have to pay a lawyer to do anything. They should just get done automatically. It's their fault. There is so many different things and nobody wants to talk about it because it's humiliating. I just want the president to pardon me because I am done waiting. I have a patent that I just received not too long ago where I re-innovated natural wood flooring, which when I say natural wood flooring, the original way of installing floors were installing raw wood and then pulling out the machines and sanding them. I re-innovated that. Instead of the wood coming and it needs to be fully sanded, it's already pre-sanded basically, where the top texture is raw, unfinished, untreated wood, but it's got a smooth top or a wire brush or distressed with hammers or scrapers, and that we just bring it to the job, we install it, we stain it, and finish it. And we don't have to bring out big sanding machines to create the dust. My patent qualifies to be nominated for National Technology and Innovation for 2021, and that medal is bestowed by the President of the United States. But because a clause in there, it says whoever is being nominated gets a FBI background check, that I could be disqualified. And I'm afraid that because of this offense that I should not have, that I won't win, and I deserve to win. I do not get the SBA loans everybody else gets, and they are discriminated against sex offenders and felonies, and I don't deserve that. A lot of this you can see laid out on my website, and all the stuff is all right there, and you can read more of what I've been going through before, during, and after prison, and you'll see what I'm going to continue to keep doing as it continues to grow. And we're going to make change together, and I'm using my story to do it because nobody's listening, but this is important, and it's unbelievable.